Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Marina, and my member of team is Miss Icha and Mr. Akbar. I like to deliver my research, my result research about volunteer motivation in helping disaster victims in the pandemic COVID-19 in Mamuju, West Sulawesi. West, as we know, while the world is facing a non-natural disaster with a pandemic of COVID-19 infection, Indonesia must again face another natural disaster. It's earthquake in happened in Mamuju, West Sulawesi on 15 January 2021. So I think this is a big problem for Indonesia with the most people. And then, as we know that the COVID-19 update in West Sulawesi in January saw the number positive case 2,285. This is a big data for the patient with infective positive COVID-19. And so that in that position, our government make a reduction of physical distancing, mass mobilization. So how about that situation when the government must deal with disaster management, which everyone involved of emergency response disaster have to come in that area disaster. So this is very interesting for us to identify how the volunteers want just still wants to come to the disaster area and help each other, and they have a great risk to infected and exposure by the COVID-19. So this is actually our purpose to have this research. Okay, but the methods, descriptive, quantitative with cross-sectional approach in January 2021, our team, Miss Akbar, go to Mamuju, West Sulawesi, and the instrument was the volunteer function inventory, and the sample of the study was 100 volunteers. So the scale of that instrument divided into 6 separate functional motifs is consists of protective, value, career, social, understanding, and enhancement. And how about the result? The result, we know that our volunteers, our respondent, 97% are male and 3% are female. And how about the result? The results say about 73% our respondent have very strong motivation, and the rest of that number, 27%, have strong motivation. And when we see about 6 components, we can see that the career have very dominant motivation with 86 respondent very strong, and then the lowest is the enhancement factor with 70% very strong motivation, and the rest of that four number respondent is just strong enough. So what we see in this result, I see that the career factors is refers to way to improve career prospect. So this is very interesting because all we know that during the COVID-19 pandemic, like nowadays, a sense of togetherness, helping each other, is the main thing for the volunteers. So how about the limitation? How about the program from a government to restrict this mass mobilization? And then I see that, yeah, the volunteers refers to more career factor than another. The result of study is slightly different from Sirga and Purba. They research about motivation of volunteers in students. So it's so different, and the result of that research is about understanding factor is the most dominant, and then this is different from our result. So I think this is not surprising considering that respondent in Srigar and Purbas were most of them is student, maybe which still beginners. So how about the research of Liu at 2020? So that knowledge and competence of nurse in disaster management is very affect at the motivation of nurse. So I think therefore I say that maybe our respondent in this research have many experience of the how to manage disaster, so the understanding factor value and etc is not so important for them because they're so expert in the volunteers, expert in disaster management. So they just feel like career factors is the dominant in their motivation. So I think the limitation in that's my study, in that my research, that we not collected data related how long the respondent become the volunteer disaster. That is the first. And the second, we don't submit about we don't restrictive about health workers volunteers and commonly volunteers. But the strength of this research was we take the data when most of the volunteers must deal with the disaster. I think that's my research. So we can conclude that um, the motivation volunteer is still high even though in this nowadays pandemic COVID-19. So the implication of the research that motivation of a volunteer can be used as a barometer to find out what strategies can be given to increase their knowledge and skill in helping disaster victims. So that's my presentation. Please feel free to ask, and I'm very glad to answer them. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.